Hello everybody, my name is Mark Sage and I'm the Executive Director of the AREA, which stands for AI for Enterprise Alliance. And welcome to the latest webinar. We've been doing lots of these recently, so welcome back to the people that have listened to them before, and welcome to any new ones. Next screen please, Kevin. Just a quick reminder, if you're not aware of the AREA, stands for Augmented Reality Enterprise Alliance. And as you can read, it's a global membership-funded, not-for-profit alliance dedicated to helping accelerate the adoption of enterprise AR. And we do that in multiple ways. And one of the key ones is providing thought leadership content like you'll be hearing today. Next slide, please. To give you an idea of our kind of members, they're in three different segments. We have enterprises that are currently deploying AR and across all sorts of different industries and delivering all sorts of different use cases. We have lots of providers of the technology, and you'll be hearing from some today, but also including hardware providers, software providers, ranging from the big platform providers right the way down to startups. You know, and myself and the AREA board are very passionate about helping startups because that's where you get lots of the innovation. The third group are non-commercial organizations. So that's a combination of government agencies, research institutes, universities, and standards organizations. So coming together and learning from each other and developing the best practice is something we've been doing for a number of years. Next slide, please. Just to focus a little bit more on what the AREA actually delivers is what we call our four strategic pillars. The first one, as I mentioned before, is about delivering thought leadership. So it's focusing very much on those business decision makers and business decision people who want to understand about the benefits of AR. So we focus on four things. We focus on what problems can be solved, the use cases, examples of the problems being solved in real life, case studies, what technologies are needed, and the ROI, the return on investment. And today is a really great example about those kind of case studies and listening to people and the providers, in this case Theorem, have done some amazing work delivering real ROI. The second pillar is around networking. It's about coming together, about learning from each other, sharing those experiences, building those partnerships, and really helping you understand how to successfully deliver the technology. The third pillar is around educate, and what I'd like to call closing the AR skills gap. Even now, we find our members are trying to find the correctly skilled people to come into their organizations. So we're working with educational organizations in universities to help them define what AR courses would look like, to offer guest lecturing from our members, for outplacements and setting those students challenges in the AR space. And then finally, and kind of a really important part, is about helping overcome some of the barriers to adoption or reducing the barriers to adoption. So we have a number of committees. They meet on a regular basis looking at things like security, safety, requirements, change management. And I know you'll hear a little bit more about some of those things today. Next slide, please, Kevin. I mentioned at the start that this is one of a number of webinars we've done. We've now done over 40, ranging through kind of thought leadership or focusing down on more detailed things like research, interoperability, safety, and standards. So yeah, if it's of interest to you, I'd suggest you go to the AREA website, and there is a whole webinar archive there. You can look through things, but also you can go to the AREA YouTube channel and look at all the different webinars. They're a great source of insightful information, you know, and some of the experts today have been fundamental of delivering some of these webinars over the years. Next slide, please. And just to finish off the story about the webinars, we've got this one today, but we've got one left before the end of the year, and introducing one of the consortiums we've been working with. So it's good to understand how the wider ecosystem works. But today we're going to focus on starting your enterprise AR journey and how two of the companies with Theorem Solutions as a provider has been able to really make it work. So if you can just go to the final slide for me, Kevin. Sorry, before I hand over then, just a couple of things to remember. This will be recorded and made available to everybody afterwards. The other thing is that if you have any questions, and please feel free to ask questions of these experts. It's a huge opportunity to pick their brains. There is a questions box within your interface for the GoToWebinar thing. Please feel free to write them in there. You can reference the person or just ask those questions, and at the end of this presentation we will endeavor to answer as many as we can. So enough of me. I'm going to hand over now to Chris from Theorem, who will introduce the company and introduce the rest of the webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Good afternoon. So I'm Chris Litchfield, Sales Director at Theorem Solutions. I'm going to quickly whiz through an introduction to Theorem and then pass you over to Andreas and Medtronic. So Theorem's been formed 30 years ago. We were mainly in the CAD translation space, taking NX over to CATIA or CATIA to JT with PMI. Then we moved into 3D PDF, so embedding your CAD model into a 3D PDF document. So that could be a BOM, just a RFQ or a work instruction, so that you can use 3D PDF but actually see the 3D CAD, manipulate it, zoom in, section it, etc. And then more recently moved into the building on that foundation. We've moved into XR, so again using that CAD base knowledge. Next slide please, Kev. So to start this visualization journey, we have our visualization pipeline. So the CAD data with its metadata is just generally too heavy. So we take that CAD data and we optimize it to be used in XR. And you can either use our applications, so we can export out into one of our ready to use applications, visualize, design review, factory layout, which I'll cover in a second. Or next, you can use your own app. So you use our pipeline to optimize the data, output as an FBX generally, or Unity asset bundle, and then feed that into your own applications. Now we have a browser interface, so you can just drag over and drop in the CAD into the pipeline. Or we have an API, so we can give you that API, you can build it into your Team Center or Windchill, and it will automatically trigger the Theorem pipeline when certain gateways are achieved in your process. Or with the CAD systems, which is popular with a lot of our guys, is you just do a CAD export, and the Theorem pipeline will be one of the options to export to. Next. And this is just a quick overview of the data in, so our read legs in and the data out. If you go to the Theorem website and look at the pipeline, it will give you a quick video of what works, how it works, what the applications are in, how you optimize that data. And this is constantly updated through clients requesting a different read legs in, so it's constantly changing this area. Next slide, please. So I mentioned there are experiences which are ready to use. The baseline is visualization, so just taking the CAD model, optimizing it, and then porting it over to VR, MR, and then being able to view that model in full scale in 3D. So instead of taking the 3D CAD model, then viewing it on a flat screen and sometimes a reduced scale, you're full scale and in 3D, which gives you a sort of a greater insight. Then we have design review, which multiple people can join. So you can take a model, take the model apart, replay movie clips, and then capture or make notes and save that session. Then the factory layout allows you to import scan data, BIM data, multiple CAD imports, and then combine that into a single scene. So you can look at how a new line is going to fit into an existing space, how your workers are going to move around that space and reach and crouch. Is there enough room to go between these two conveyors without getting squashed? Then we have our guides, which is our training application. So you can create your own training applications, and there's additional user licenses to consume that data. Visual Digital Twin actually sits within a number of the applications, which is a CAD snap to. So you can look at a component, it will recognize it, and then overlay the CAD, so then you can explore what's inside that model or that component. And the visualization pipeline we've already mentioned. Next slide, please. So we cover augmented, mixed and virtual reality. This list of devices below is constantly changing, so please refer to our website again. We're always receiving new devices on the market from hardware vendors to test and support our applications too. So if you have a device and it's not mentioned there, please contact us and we'll see where it is on our roadmap and let you know when it'll be available. Next one, please, Kev. And with design review and factory layout, we have the ability to collaborate. So we can have 30 engineers located anywhere in the world joining in the same design session with voice, and they can be on multiple devices. So you can be on in VR, someone else can join in MR, or you can join on a tablet or even a desktop. So this is a very powerful tool. Next slide. So that's me finished. I'm now going to pass over to Andreas, who's the Senior Principal Development Architect at Medtronic, and he's going to take you through his journey, some do's and don'ts, and where there be dragons. So over to you, Andreas.
Great, thank you very much, Chris. I hope you can hear me well. Next slide, please, Kevin. So I've a couple of points that I brought with me here. I usually can talk for days or weeks on that topic, but I'm trying to squeeze that into the 15 minutes that I roughly have. So I give you a quick introduction just into the company and myself, but in the core, I want to talk about our journey at Medtronic with the technology, what we found, some of the key requirements that are there and the solutions we are using today. And I have a few takeaways out of our experience that I might want to give you onto the way. And then I want to talk about the use case that Chris mentioned there around Theorem solutions and how we implement their solution. Next slide, please, Kevin. So as Chris mentioned, Medtronic, we have about 90,000 plus employees. Our core business obviously is medical device manufacturing. We treat over 70 conditions in the human body, present in over 150 countries. And what's important here is that we've just under 80 manufacturing sites across the world. Next slide, please. Myself, I'm mainly a computer scientist and I work in our interventional vascular and structural heart division. On the right, you can see the size of it. We've about 14,000 employees. Again, key here, 17 global sites. We're looking after enterprise operations and within that around the network engineering part of things. And I'm leading the digital technology efforts within that group, and I'm also looking after OT within our digitalization program. And XR is within Industry 4.0, as we know, is a big pillar there. So you will see in a couple of slides that we are utilizing some solutions across our manufacturing operations out of that space. Next slide, please, and then maybe straight into the next, Kevin. So our journey within Medtronic, we started about 4 years ago to look into utilizing some of the augmented reality stuff. So my focus is on manufacturing technologies and the side of manufacturing and operations. And we wanted to see if the then HoloLens 1 device and augmented reality, if there's anything that it can do for us, either in product development, research and development, or on the operations side of things. So in 2017, we approached some vendors here in Ireland and sourced a HoloLens 1 and then brainstormed across multiple groups and teams, and after that showing them how the HoloLens 1 works to identify some of the use cases. And the first use case we came up with just at the start of 2018 then was in the new product development space, where we usually design our own manufacturing equipment based on the manufacturing needs. This is all done in CAD obviously, but then the first models or first machines are physically developed, and we thought there might be a case here where we can actually introduce virtual models to do some of the stakeholder feedback and to work on the machines before they are actually cut in metal and save money. And that was our first business case, the first idea, and that actually worked very well. So based on that, we developed an application with a third-party provider and rolled that out. And the success there allowed us to come up with a strategy of how we can maybe look into utilizing XR a bit more. A great help here was that Microsoft developed a second generation HoloLens, which most of you will know brings a lot of more possibilities in that space and opportunities to do things with it. In 2019, we kicked off our digitalization program here that looks at implementing Industry 4.0 capabilities. And with that, we integrated all the XR initiatives we had going on here on site into that program. And we've since, over the last year and this year, added multiple XR solutions, and I'll show you a couple of slides around this. And obviously with COVID, there was a lot of support that was going on, and the virtual world, be it VR or AR, was very helpful here in supporting this. Throughout the years, we did continue to grow the solutions and the strategy, and today with multiple XR solutions running globally. Some of them are integrated in our day-to-day processes, specifically in operations, and we haven't stopped here. We are still scouting for new technologies, and we still innovate in that space as well. Next slide, please, Kevin. So some of the key requirements really that we found, now that is obviously based on our own experience, that I want to talk you through there quickly, that you find along the way are really key to make something like this successful. And we're probably not the only ones at the start of the whole journey that were sitting there and saying it's very hard to sell what you're trying to do here to senior management, to executives, and specifically to the people that have the money that you're after to finance your innovation and experiments. A lot of technology is still very new to many people, and it's quite important for them, obviously, to see a business value here. So the way we did it is we identified a case to go after and really build a business case around this. And one of the key things in there is the cost benefit analysis, or your ROI, which is a very hard thing to do. And as Mark mentioned at the start, the area has done a great job in creating an ROI calculator. But there's often still tweaking that you need to do to get to the state that, you know, that it maps, it fits to your business or your enterprise. Now, some of the things you need to be aware of here that we found as well, there isn't always a hard benefit to the solution or to the cost that you're going to put on the table. And that is the bit that you really have to work hard to convince people. So there's a lot of soft benefits that might come out of that you can't one-to-one translate into dollars. And we're more than happy to talk a bit more in depth outside of this if you're interested in how we might package them up. All of this results in financial commitment. You need to have the financial commitment, and you need that for a longer term. Now, a lot of enterprises are very short in terms of the planning, mostly a year. You do your AOP, and this is what fits in. But the journey here with AR in your enterprise is taking you much further than that year, and the financial commitment needs to flow with this. So it's important to get that commitment and to get it beyond your usual, say, financial circuits. And it's the same with your executive buy-in. It is a journey after all, and it's something that sticks with you for a while, right? It's not usually a very short program that you say, oh, we implement that and that's it, and then we go and do something else. It's something that you really need to stick with, and your executives need to be buying into this. The other thing we found is the technology support. Now you can bring in as many devices if you want, and fancy devices, and sometimes you get looked at and say, what a toy has he there again on his head. You need to very early go and talk to your technology provider, your IT within the company, be it your own IT or third-party IT support that you have, to make sure that you can integrate whatever you do. So bringing in a solution in that space and having devices that can handle the solution is only one part of the whole package. What you need to be aware of is as well that at one point you might want to integrate with internal systems to get data from them, be it CAT data or be it whatever, or you want to integrate it into Active Directory. So you need to work with your IT provider to come up with a solid plan around device management and integration into your enterprise infrastructure. Otherwise, you might find yourself very, very quick at a point where you have a great idea and you technically have a solution that's working, but you can't actually bring it any further, or you can't even test it with your own data because that could be data protection concerns or data security concerns. So you can't use your own CAT models as long as you're not in a safe environment, but you can't get into that safe environment because you couldn't integrate the devices. So that's something you really need to keep in mind from the start. Say, okay, how are we going to integrate them? And then really key is change management. Now, you've heard that probably left, right, and center. That is all new technology, and people are often not really prone to change. They are very very concerned sometimes. If you go down on manufacturing floors, oh, what is this device now? So change management and bringing the people along is important, or was important for us, and so is a strategy. And it goes back to the financial commitment and to your executive buy-in. You need to have a strategy, and that strategy certainly needs to look out much longer than the year that you might have your financial sorted in your AOP, right? So coming up with a 5-year strategy or longer and going back revising them is something that keeps you on track. And there's nowhere written that your 5-year strategy, that you have to stick to your 5-year strategy, right? So specifically in that technology area, things are changing. It's a fast-paced area. There's new devices coming out. There's new software coming out all the time. You need to be able to adapt, but you still need to have a strategy for your 5 years that you can tie in all the things from the start, like your business case and your financial support, and that you can show that you have a plan there. And probably the most important thing, at least for us, is persistence. You need to stick with it, and you need to keep working on it. There will be a lot of pushback from all sides, because a lot of people might not see the advantages. And I can tell you the biggest push we got and the biggest push for acceptance within the company was through COVID. And it is, as sad as it sounds, it has to be something like this that made people realize how important it could be to do something in a virtual space rather than in a very personal space. Next slide, please, Karen. So that's just another summary slide with the same things, just to list it out where we put things in our journey, where we started with a strategy. And if I compare the strategy we did at the time in 2018 to the one we have today, it has completely changed based on new solution and new technologies. But the bottom line is still the same, where we wanted to go. And we now have the executive buy-in and the financial commitment, and we're working with IT to implement solutions easier, right? In the center of it is always your change management. So make sure you bring the people that are important with you on the whole journey. Now, the next slide will give you a quick overview of our key solutions that we're using. Digital line design is what we call Theorem solution in here, and within the company that has won multiple awards as it is implemented. We also do training now for operators, manufacturing operators and engineers. with AR or XR, we give demand throughout the work with workflow scenarios. We do stream IoT data live from equipment into devices like the HoloLens, and we also do some remote support or different types of remote collaboration. And on the bottom, you just see a selection of some of the devices that we're using or that we're trialing out. Key and in the center at the moment, again, obviously, is the HoloLens is an all-around device, but I personally think the future is also in smaller devices that have a better ergonomical fit. And over the next 2, 3, 5 years, we probably see a shift to devices like maybe the one on the bottom right somewhere there that you can wear 8 hours and are following a specific use case rather than have an all-around device like the HoloLens. Couple of key takeaways on the next slide from my side. Keep your user in mind is the most important. Like you can innovate in the digital space very easily if you're into this, but if you don't keep your user in mind, it isn't going to go anywhere. And Chris probably is sick of me saying, oh, well, how is a user going to use that? All I want is a solution with a one click. And Theorem, I have to say, is excellent in that space, working with us as the customer and making that happen, which was really important for us to say, I can only convince my user base to use the solution that I'm bringing in if it is so easy that they don't really need a handbook or learn a new application, something like a CAD program, right? The easiest is if they can click one button and they can use it. And that also means that you need to include your end user in certain decisions, say it around UI, say, okay, how do you want the UI to look? Are we going to do some mock-ups? And you tell us what you think is the best to really come to a solution or a solution in this case that the users have designed with you. Your acceptance will be so much easier. For an enterprise to be successful, obviously the solutions need to be scalable that you bring in. There's often a lot of individual and custom development going on that you can see, which is great, I think, in the pioneering space and in the proof of concept phase. But ultimately, whatever you bring in needs to scale across the company and across the enterprise. That is something you always need to keep in mind. You also obviously need an economical viable business case. Now, on this point, I should say, not all of the cases necessarily have to be economically viable, right? So in our case, say if we wanted to bring forward 3 or 4 different solutions or capabilities, maybe only 1 or 2 of them brought benefits in terms of savings or whatever could be converted into dollars, but the other 2 could have been hidden in there, right? In the sense that 2 of them paid for 4, right? So it doesn't always have to be 1 for 1. Because it is still a very new space, you have to be bold and specifically be prepared to fail, right? You need to test things out, and that's another thing where you need your financial commitment. Doing this kind of digital innovation on paper is not going to work. You need the commitment to say, okay, I need to buy all sorts of devices, 3 or 4 different glasses, to have a proper comparison to see what's going to work for us in our use case. And that's some of the commitment that I was mentioning earlier that you need. Make sure you partner a lot with vendors, academia, organizations like the area, excellent resource. This is an area where on your own, I don't believe you will get far, right? You need input from all sides. And there is a lot of good knowledge and there's a lot of experts out there that done a lot of work in that space and they're brilliant. And again, I can't mention it often enough, persistence is key here and keep innovating. So very quickly to our use case around Theorem, and then I know I'm already probably talking way too long here. So digital line and equipment design, I think Chris mentioned that as well. If you next slide, please, Kevin. So very quick, what did we do in 21, 22? So that's a year ago. So that was in 2020 and 2021. as a calendar year. As I mentioned earlier, new product development is creating the equipment that we use to do our manufacturing operations. And you can see on the right-hand side, the usual case is that a lot of the equipment is being designed in cardboard and then put in a space and tested for ergonomics and all these kind of things, health and safety. And we said there should be a better way. And as we started with a one piece of equipment design review back in 2017 and 2018, we said, let's push that further and make it a whole manufacturing line. And this is exactly where Theorem comes in with an excellent solution, allowing us to use our own CAD models to put them together in a virtual space. And next slide, please, Kevin. And also to use it for multiple devices, right? So here are some of the milestones that we wanted to achieve. That's basically part of our strategy from the start. I needed to bring the end user along, so I needed to make sure that engineers don't have to learn or don't have to be, full-blown XR experts in order to use what they create in SolidWorks CAD in a virtual space and design their lines there. So it needed to be simple, it needed to be reliable, and it needed to be central somewhere, those models. We wanted it seamless in multiple devices, definitely on a PC, on a HoloLens, and hopefully on other devices as well. And we wanted to collaborate in that space as well. And Theorem is allowing all this to do. We pushed it further then, and again, Theorem didn't hesitate to help us with this and put animations that we now can transfer from CAD into the virtual environment. And then just for the convenience of certain people that wouldn't be comfortable of wearing maybe a HoloLens, we can use Android or iPad platforms, iOS platforms there as well. And then last slide, please, Kevin. It's a great signal, I suppose. People, device independence too. So tablet and VR support to really cover the whole of our XR XR universe, so to speak. Cloud then is the big one next on our list, and this is where we are at the moment. Now we are using it with an on-premise installation, but the next step obviously is going into the cloud, which will allow us to use larger models and to make use of faster connectivity there as well. And then the outlook for us is pushing the boundaries again, spatial awareness, building up boundaries, really building virtual rooms that allow us to, or that tell us if we put an equipment in a wall that we can't put it there. We want to track objects and we want to detect collisions as well within that. So there's a lot that is going on, but again, back to one of the slides, you said it's a strategy that you might be able to adjust along the way, but you need to have that strategy and that outlook. So I talked a lot around it now. I might be slightly over time, but thank you very much for listening to me there. If there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. I think I'm handing over to Mark.
I guess which Mark, but it's just Mark Sage. I'm going to hand over to Mark Davey from Theorem. Mark, all yours.
Yeah, Mark Davey, sorry.
It's all right. Thanks, Mark. Hi, my name's Mark Davey, and I am the sales manager here in North America for Theorem Solutions. And today I'm going to introduce Ray Slowik. Ray is the senior R&D engineer for Valiant TMS. Valiant was an early adopter of Theorem XR software. They started using Theorem in May of 2018. And Ray is going to talk about the many use cases that Valiant is using XR software for. So with that, I will turn it over to Ray Slowik.
Hello, and thank you for having me today. I want to start by thanking Theorem for all of their great support that they've had with us here moving forward in our AR/XR journey. We did actually started our adventure in XR along from an IIoT approach in 2017 and move forward from there. Let me tell you a bit about Valiant. Next slide, please. Valiant is an equipment integrator. We are a global organization. We're represented in more than 20 countries throughout the Americas, Europe, Asia, Australia, South Africa, Brazil. We integrate assembly lines both for the automotive industry and for aerospace, and make custom applications for smaller industries that are moving into highly technical, advanced automated robotic systems for reconfiguration. As such, our demands for visualization are incredibly high. Likewise, the amount of information that we deal with is vast, and our customers each require their own systems as far as CAD support to be operated in. Each of our automotive customers has their own, and this is where we were introduced to Theorem. They had been handling our conversion processes between the various CAD softwares. Obviously, our designers work specifically in the formats that are required by our customers, while at the same time we maintain an in-house repository of all our information in a standard JT format as part of our Team Center approach for maintaining the information in a retrievable manner. Next slide, please. Our locations everywhere. We're more than happy to speak to anyone at any time to support their projects with well over 1,200 team members now. Build locations are global, and we have been utilizing that global approach to maximize our ability to present the optimal solution to our customers regardless where they are. We do global builds and ship to location, while at the same time we attempt to do as much of the build locally at our local facilities as possible to reduce our customers' cost in the transportation of the finished product and the assembly of the line. Next slide, please. Let's get right to these use cases. We understand that the hardest aspect of a new technology such as this is the understanding of how new tools are introduced into standard facilities. And many organizations have a long history of how they have been utilizing their services. They have dedicated internal processes that everyone is comfortable with. These are some of the greatest hurdles to overcome in the introduction of new technologies. We recognize this rather early on, and as we started exploring the various methodologies for augmented and extended reality, we understood that our case is different than many others. Many people could use a virtual cave and bring everything into it and work within a full virtual environment. However, we spend much of our time out on the build floor and at our customers' locations. We build the entire line within our facility, operate it for a period to ensure quality, and then disassemble that line and reassemble it at our customer's location with the expectation that the reassembly will happen in very short order, generally a couple of weeks, and then have that line at a operational standard within a week or two after that. This is a incredibly fast pace. As such, when we are our overall turnaround generally for a project is less than 18 months from the time that we receive the quotes for the operation, build, and design, or I should say design, build, and execute the program. What we found is that we needed to identify use cases that would allow for easy integration of the technology onto the plant floor. Even at this stage, it was difficult for us. We had multiple attempts at introducing a tool build review. It would sound very simple. You can look at the tool as it is being built and apply a direct overlay of the CAD model onto the tool to verify the tool build. Our discovery was that the requirements for utilization of the technology, the actual use of the HoloLens as a tool, or the Theorem solutions applications, required more than just a 15-minute introduction. In order to utilize these tools well, it would take some training, and it also takes a bit of expertise. Some people are much easier than others at operating the equipment. I would say the first reaction that people would say, oh, it's age related, but it's not. We have people that are young that have phenomenal skills in it. We have people that are seniors in our organization that have phenomenal skills. And we have resistance from both. We found that about 20% of the people who utilize this type of technology have some problems with it themselves, some form of physical acceptance issues. Many of the times it's a visual issue where the eye tracking is not right. We discovered several people who had both color blindness and tracking issues that they didn't recognize. Additionally, there is some issues for people who have spatial relations problems or motion sickness. In all, we identified somewhere between 10 and 20% of people who had to spend a little more time to become comfortable with the technology. And so we developed a core group that were experts and could train trainers in our divisional locations. And we expanded from our location in North America overseas. This started in 2018 and moved on through 2019. Luckily, when 2020 came about and our experiences with COVID reduced our capacities to move between facilities. We did have a core group in each one of our facilities that could utilize the HoloLens and the Theorem Solutions software to overcome many of our difficulties. This allowed us to go to our multi-user review sessions where we could bring in full size or actually much larger than full size models and allow engineers from multiple locations, both in Europe and the United States and Mexico, to physically walk into the solution and see the CAD model in full scale on the plant floor or in our review areas. To look over the cases that we built, our tool review was the first one. This allowed for us to identify a need of our builders in order to ensure that we had a first time through approach. Pardon me for just a moment. Much better, thank you. Kit reviews, virtual metal. Once the tool review case was on the floor and our operators actually started utilizing the HoloLens to view their models as they were building them, they realized that there was more to do, and they started generating ideas within their own groups and giving them back to us as new use cases to develop. The key was always to fully develop a use case and then present it to the field. You don't want to walk into a situation where your use case is not fully developed. It breeds disinterest. It also allows for the customers, your internal or external customers, to have doubts of the technology. You have to be very solid in your approach and understand that you need to present a solid technology as you move forward. To just look at these first 7 up front use cases. The tool review, we were able to identify items that weren't identifiable easily before. We had been utilizing advanced large screen 2D layouts of 3D applications so that our builders could easily look at the screens and assemble the components in the appropriate manner. However, many times plates can be flipped end to end or upside down. We also build left and right hand components of everything. In many instances, while the right hand component would be completely defined, the left hand would simply be stated as a build mirror image. This leads to a lot of complications on the floor. Knowing that the farther left you can place the design changes, the more money you save, we were able to ensure that we've eliminated a lot of the problems that would occur due to improper tool buildup. Grab a left-hand piece that looks the same as the right, and you put it in, and the clearance issues just don't align. The kit rebuild, we build kits that advance already existing lines, and many times there's issues about what's occurring out on the plant floor. So we could take full-scale models, things that were 5-10 meters on a side, and place them physically within our customer's environment, walk around, spin them, add kinematics, and have our customers look and review what's occurring on their plant floor as it would be after we've assembled it. We have many times receive metal from our customers that we align the tooling that we're building to. However, because we move so rapidly, sometimes our equipment is built before the first pieces of metal arrive from our customers. So we're able to place the virtual image of the metal within the tool itself and then adjust the tooling components to that virtual image. So that when the tool is sent to our customer's location, we save multiple hours of having to adjust it on their plant floor. It comes ready to use. Again, case 4, our global applications, we were able to move forward even during the COVID experiences and have customers and engineers from around the world meet online with the full-scale models to view what was occurring. This also allowed us to do ergonomic reviews and build reviews for our customers where they were not needed to come to our facilities, but could actually look at the lines at their own locations. We could make them small enough to fit onto a conference table or large enough to fill an entire assembly hall. Additionally, as was mentioned by Andreas, the maintainability review is very important. You could physically climb inside or underneath the areas where the tools were to ensure that you had sufficient clearance to remove gearboxes and motors, or look for small items that were complicating things. This was pointed out by one of our customers. He walked through one of the devices we were building for him, and he says, "Oh, look at here. There's these clamps and screws are sticking out. If I put my hand in here to make adjustments, I'm going to catch my hand. Can we turn that around?" And that type of visualization would not have been present if we were utilizing standard CAD formats. Let's move on to the next slide, our use case 8. Many times we have to do very rapid layouts. When this happens, the first thing you want to do is ensure that your floor layout for all of your components is correct. With the HoloLens on and the floor layout in 2D presented over the existing format, within moments we can tell whether or not all of the layouts are correct. You can imagine the amount of time it saves in the event that a robot base plate is placed even a few degrees off. All of your pre-programming would have to be corrected. Utilizing this, we're able to move forward rapidly. One of the things we wanted to point out as we're moving forward, we've recently started to actually assemble early prototypes for our customers so that they can get back 2 or 3 models prior to the line or the equipment to normally assemble that prototype completion. They have a prototype in hand. Now, the tolerances may be off a bit. The tightness of build may be slightly off, but as a mule build for a vehicle's door or body to be used in crash test analysis or for component installation analysis, it's very, very close to exactly what they need. Likewise, we're able to move forward with direct marking on panels. Now, when a car is built or a airliner is built, thousands of joining operations have to occur, and these are done robotically, automatically, but the initial layouts on these equipment that the robots are aligned to generally have to be done by hand. These early panels are usually laid out using old school methods where mylar films would be fitted to the panel and all of the locations would be marked on them, or primary panels would be laid out in a CMM application and then holes drilled to where those would be, and then the welds would be, and then that would be laid over the top of your multiple panels to mark them so that you can do this during testing. We're able to cut the build time and layout times by days simply by using the JTs with the mastic or the weld locations pre-indicated in the model, and then make a full scale, drop it on top of the actual metal and simply mark them down with markers right to the center. We also use this as a verification for QA purposes after the fact by looking at the tolerance spheres that we created. When the panel comes out, we do an overlay, and within moments you can tell whether or not the welds are correctly located. Our use cases are expanding rapidly. More and more of the people in the field are coming back telling us where they have hard points, where they perceive new use cases could be presented utilizing the technology. And at this point, we have developed in-house service teams because the demand has been so great, it's exceeded our capacity within the R&D department to support the use in the field. We have well over 20 Gen 2 HoloLenses, Gen 1 HoloLenses in the field. We use ocular devices from from Vue6 and HMT1s. They are solid. We're now moving on to iPads and iPhones for presentation. The one thing that isn't indicated here is our IIoT tie-in, and we are using virtual IIoT panels presented inside the lines themselves so that people, maintenance or repair can have direct call-up of IIoT information at the site of the repair rather than having to go outside the line or bring in paper prints. So all in all, this is a tremendous technology that moves forward rapidly. It's the preparation to get to where you want to be that is the difficult part. I think there's one more slide there. Our fixture fee builds, this has been our latest, and our customers are clamoring for this type of activity now. And we've actually spun off a separate division or a separate group within our Barty and White division to support this. Next slide. Here you can see actual applications where we build in the individual components on a prototype table, clamp them together, and then do direct welding on location, so we can put together. We've done component builds of in excess of 300 individual body parts to allow us to rapidly move through prototype builds. And the last. Thank you so much for your time. I'm noted we're rather close to the end, so I don't want to take up any more than what we have. Thank you so much for your time today.
That's great. Thank you very much, Ray. Really enjoyed that, and Andreas as well. So again, just a reminder, if you have any questions, please do put them in the chat box. I do have one I'm going to ask just real quick. But the session has been recorded, and you'll get a copy of the recording and the presentation soon afterwards. So I guess this may be for Ray, I'm not quite sure, but how many HoloLens 2s have you deployed, and how are you managing them in tune provisioning packages, and are you using VPN on the HoloLens devices?
No, we're not using VPN on our HoloLenses. This has been an issue because our current VPN is not licensed through the HoloLens. So what we've done is moved all of our use case JTs, and we have several thousand models already created. And those exist in the cloud. We have complete siloing of our data for each one of our customers as separate data silos, so there's no possibility of cross visualization by customers of other customers' work. Currently we have 18 Gen 2s and 7 Gen 1s. We are, for the HoloLenses, we've used the HoloLenses so hard on our factory floor that we actually overheated and burned out 2 of them during operation. Luckily, there was within the warranty period, and so we have 2 new HoloLens Gen 2s for that. But we have extensive use globally of these Gen 2 HoloLenses.
Fantastic. And maybe I just bring in Andreas here as well, because obviously you talked about the various devices. Can you give a bit of insight there in terms of the devices and any management of them?
Of course I can, yeah. So in Galway alone here in Ireland, we have about just under 50 of those Gen 2s, and I think worldwide it's hundreds we're using. We do have them enrolled. We're using Workspace ONE as our MDM, mobile device management platform. So we have them enrolled for the certification process, and with that we are able to use our Pulse VPN on those. to dial in, specifically over the last 2 years. That was very helpful during COVID because we were all working from home. So that did allow us to continue with all the work and using all the systems that we have on premise at the moment. But device management is still a bit of an open question. We're working through this, seeing what the requirements are. I think this is a hot topic for the future. How can we best manage those devices in an enterprise environment? And the whole access questions, I suppose, another reason for pushing more to go into the cloud rather than for on-premise solution.
Right, I agree. It's a really big area, and it's something the area is actively working on. Yeah, specifically, we've created what we call the Android Working Group, but it's about, and it's not just about Android, but we're focusing on the kind of Android platform. So if anybody's interested in finding out more about that and certainly supporting the initiative, please feel free to give me a shout. I got a couple of other questions. I do realize it's 1 minute past, but I think an interesting question here about in regard making device agnostic solutions. What are the key challenges? I think that's probably one more for Chris and Mark. Any kind of comments on that?
Sorry, Mark, could you just read that one again? Sorry,
Just the challenges about making device agnostic solutions.
Yeah, we've got we tend to go based on demands. So customers saying we're looking at device X, we'll take a look at it, or we get them forwarded us from the hardware vendors. But we do need to kind of check suitability. Is it robust enough for the application you're looking at? And also, is the demand there? We've got, I won't mention any names, but we've got other devices that came in, we did the work for them, and then they disappeared from the market. So because it is such a fast moving space, yeah, we're kind of cautious, but we do, most of the mainstream devices we will support, and we will support going forward.
And just a quick add-on question to that, Chris, in terms of Theorem Solutions, what are the main verticals you're supporting at the moment?
So when you say verticals, are you talking to industries or?
Industries, yeah.
So it's automotive and aerospace are our traditional sort of work areas. Alternative energy, we're seeing a big take up in that space. And, with Medtronic along, which is a new area for us, the medical device area, we're pleased that they're on because we're sort of spreading our footprint a bit. But it really seems to be automotive aerospace that the sort of driving force so far.
Okay, great. Well, it's 3 minutes past the top of the hour. I've really enjoyed listening to all the kind of conversations. Any other questions we haven't answered, we will follow up with you. As I said, there will be a recording. Please feel free to reach out to myself or to any of the kind of team here. Again, thank you, gentlemen, for some really great insights. And if I don't speak to anybody, wish them it's a bit early, but a happy Christmas and a good new year. And anybody interested in finding more about the area, please feel free to contact me. But thanks ever so much, everybody, and I'll stop the meeting now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, and take care.